Pete Hegseth spent years telling America what the military should be. Today, Jason Crow reminded him what it really is, and Hegseth had no defense left for his own record.
Now recognizes the gentleman from Colorado, Mr. Crow.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Thank you, Chairman Kane, Secretary Hegseth, and Mrs. McDonald. You're doing a great job today, Mrs. McDonald. Secretary Hegseth, we have a lot of things in common. In fact, our careers started the same way. We were both infantry officers. We were both platoon leaders. We both deployed our platoons to combat in a counterinsurgency environment. There are very few better leadership training grounds than that experience, and it's that experience that I want to transport us back into time, back to Lieutenant Hegseth and Lieutenant Crow. There are a lot of things that make a leader and that make a unit effective. Would you say that unit cohesion is important?
Unit cohesion, amongst many, is very important, yes, sir.
It's an important element. And part of that is making sure that all members of your unit felt included in that team, correct?
Far more important that every member of that unit felt capable to do the mission and united in that mission.
But that they were included and felt part of the team as well.
I wouldn't use the word inclusion, sir, but yes, they were cohering as a team, yes.
And that you reduce tension and infighting and points of tension between your platoon members so that you can focus on the mission. That was a part of the regular job.
Correct. And so unity amongst members, despite differences of backgrounds, race, whatever that is.
And I agree with you on that.
Together on a mission.
And words, part of that is words are important and setting the tone is important, correct? When you're a leader.
All aspects of leadership, mostly leading by example.
Did you ever tell them your political affiliation? Did you ever tell your platoon members your political affiliation?
We certainly discussed lots of topics, and I'm sure my political affiliation.
Did you ever ask them theirs?
No, their political affiliation was never a concern to me.
Because it's important that everybody feel included and that people weren't excluded, correct? That would be antithetical to leadership.
I'm sure my platoon contained Republicans, Democrats, and independents, and I had no idea what their affiliation was.
Okay, that was actually my next question, so I appreciate you answering that. You led your unit in a counterinsurgency environment, and you interacted with civilians, correct?
Interacted with members of the civilian population, sure.
Yep. And you were, in fact, a COIN instructor, a counterinsurgency instructor, correct?
In Afghanistan in 2011 and 2012, I was the senior counterinsurgency instructor.
And you signed off on a manual. There's actually a counterinsurgency manual that you signed off on and helped create. And your name's on that manual, correct?
We were a part of creating a lot of content at the COIN Academy, yes.
Do you remember this portion of the manual? It says, if you've killed two innocents, you've set yourself back more than you've moved forward. Do you still agree with that?
I would have to take a look at the manual, but obviously no one in warfare is seeking to kill innocents.
Okay. Because it's important to show why we're different from the enemy. Because we're not the enemy, right? We're different from our adversary. Would you agree with that? We have different morals and different values.
We are not the enemy, sir.
We have different morals and we have different values than the enemy.
We have a code, a uniform code of military justice.
So the answer to that is yes.
Formations that
you're not trying to compare us to Al-Qaeda and ISIS, are you? We're different.
I know the code of the United States military and army that I signed up for.
You can't tell me whether we're different?
Right hand.
You're not willing to say we're different?
Of course we're different.
Okay, thank you.
It's absurd.
That's why I'm trying to reconcile the fact that we learned many of the same lessons as platoon leaders about unit cohesion, making sure that people were included, that we didn't ask people's political affiliation, that we interacted respectfully with civilian populations, that what a leader says matters, that the tone you set matters, that we are not the enemy, that we are different from them, we lead differently, we have different morals. How can I reconcile that experience and those lessons learned from Lieutenant Hegseth to now Secretary Hegseth, where you say things like what you just saw here, making us equivalent on the same standards as our adversaries, doing the same things that ISIS and Al-Qaeda would do? How can you possibly reconcile that? I can't. And just the other day down at Fort Bragg in our beloved 82nd Airborne Division, sitting there we politicize the military and pull our paratroopers into politics, booing elected officials, booing politicians with whom you disagree. It's antithetical to our values, and you, sir,
Gentleman's
have changed.
time's expired. Chair now recognizes the gentleman.
What you just witnessed was one of the sharpest takedowns of a political opponent we've seen this year. Not because Jason Crow was loud or theatrical, but because he spoke to Pete Hegseth in the one language Hegseth could not escape, the language of their shared military service. Crow doesn't attack with shouting or political posturing. He attacks with memory, with principle, with the weight of lived experience. He reminded Hegseth, 2 lieutenants, 2 platoon leaders, 2 officers responsible for soldiers in a counterinsurgency environment, of the responsibilities they once carried together. This isn't political theater. It's identity, duty, and shared oath. And Crow used that shared foundation to expose just how far Hegseth has drifted from the values he once claimed to uphold. Crow asked about unit cohesion, a fundamental principle of infantry leadership. Hegseth's reaction was telling. He politicized a concept every veteran knows is essential for mission success. He rejected the word inclusion, even as inclusion is what prevents tension, infighting, and the breakdown of trust within a platoon. Crow wasn't asking a culture war question. He was asking the question every platoon leader learns on day one: do your soldiers feel part of the team? Hegseth answered like a pundit, not a leader. Crow then asked something more revealing: did you ever ask your soldiers their political affiliation? Of course not. The military functions on one principle: mission comes before politics. Yet Hegseth couldn't acknowledge the deeper point: a leader must create an environment where every soldier feels they belong, regardless of background or belief. Then Crow moved into doctrine, the counterinsurgency manual Hegseth himself helped craft. The doctrine that says killing innocents doesn't bring victory. That it sets you back. That success comes from hearts and minds, legitimacy, and moral authority. Hegseth suddenly couldn't recall the basics of a strategy he once taught. And that's when Crow dropped the hammer: are we different from our enemies? Are we different from ISIS and Al-Qaeda? Hegseth stumbled, equivocated, and danced around the answer. Crow had to practically drag him to say the obvious: yes, the U.S. military is morally distinct from terrorist organizations. That moment matters because the military's moral foundation rests entirely on that distinction. The Uniform Code of Military Justice, rules of engagement, protection of civilians, accountability, legitimacy, everything relies on the assumption that we are not like those we fight. Then Crow asked the real question: how did Lieutenant Hegseth, who once understood all these principles, become Secretary Hegseth, the official now embracing rhetoric that undermines the military's moral code? How does someone who once taught restraint now embrace talking points that erode trust, fracture cohesion, and blur moral lines? Crow's message is clear: this isn't a policy disagreement. This is about the erosion of principles that keep the military professional, grounded, and apolitical. When Hegseth pivoted to grievance politics, claiming paratroopers at Fort Bragg booing elected officials was the real problem, he only proved Crow's point. Hegseth politicized the military at the moment he claimed to oppose it. Crow wasn't exposing hypocrisy, he was exposing inversion, the complete reversal of values from a man who once knew better. This is why the moment resonates. Not because Crow won the exchange, but because he held up a mirror, and Hegseth didn't recognize his own reflection. Veterans, service members, and civilians could see the danger of allowing titles and political rhetoric to replace leadership, principle, and moral clarity. This was a lesson in integrity, leadership, and what it truly means to serve. If this analysis helped you understand the deeper stakes, the moral integrity of the military, the danger of politicizing service, and why leadership values matter, make sure to like, subscribe, and comment.